Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video, and in this one, I'm bringing you my one-button Frost Mage build for PvP. This is a build that got me past my sticking point, got me past my plateau, and got me to 2400 rating in Solo Shuffle, and it is so fun to play. Not to mention, if you want to stay up to date to related news with World of Warcraft, make sure to smash that subscribe button. Your support is greatly appreciated, but let's get started. The one-button Frost Mage build. This is an Ice Lance build. It focuses around Frozen Orb and spamming Ice Lance like it's Cataclysm days with Mitch Jones. We're going to start this game off in Invis, sneak on to the enemy healer, and look for a Dragon's Breath and a Polymorph or a Ring of Frost if we get interrupted. We're going to be babysitting the healer, Flurry, Ice Lance, Flurry, Ice Lance procs. As soon as we get those, we're altering, we're blinking back. We alter time as soon as enemies pop cooldowns on us, and we want to use that mobility. We get a Hammer of Justice onto the healer. We're dumping those Ice Lance procs, dumping those Flurry procs after we've used all of our Ice Lance procs, and looking to keep Frozen Orb down and Blizzard on as many targets as possible. We're playing the Snowdrift. Look at that double stun, huge value, gets a trinket, gets an IBF. Absolutely love the Snowdrift. It is so much fun, so underrated, and really performs well with this build. We're still continuing to try and avoid these melee as much as possible by blinking away. We still got our displacement, another charge of Shimmer, so we're going to blink away from the melee. We can Shimmer back. We're going to use Shifting Power to try and reset that Frozen Orb. We do end up getting stunned on it, so we're going to displace back into our Frozen Orb. And I like doing that maneuver. Put an orb on yourself, blink out of it, and then displace back into it, because then the melee have to run out of it and run back in it to get through to you. We get a stun onto the monk. We're just going to slap some Ice Lances over onto the monk. We don't discriminate. We're going to just slap Ice Lances onto whoever looks good at the time. Do as much damage as we possibly can while trying to keep a distance. Now we sneak in a Polymorph, look for a little cheeky Ray of Frost. Gets a trinket from the monk. It's an AMZ. We're going to blast wave the Death Knight out of that anti-magic zone. We get a freedom, so we're just going to continue to kite away. We still got 2 Shimmers, get max distance, and now we can get a couple of Frost Bolts out, although, it's not required to press Frost Bolt. When you got Icy Veins up, it can be a good idea with this build, as it is going to increase your damage quite a bit. So when you can free cast, you want to take advantage of it, but if you can't, you're still going to be able to do a lot. So we're going to put Frozen Orb down on ourselves, pop down a Blizzard, and blink out of it. This way we can displace back into the Frozen Orb if we need to, guaranteeing that we're getting some value, but we are getting kind of low here, so we're going to trade our Ice Block, make sure that we don't end up dying. I recommend Ice Blocking maybe like 30% health against something like a Warrior with Execute. We're going to alter time, blink away. Now we can cancel our alter, go back, get a blink charge, and blink again. We're strangulated at the moment, so we're going to alter back. We get gripped back in again. We can Shimmer away. We'll Shimmer on top of the healer, go for a Dragon's Breath, look for a Sheep, get gripped again. Not a big deal. We're just going to keep smacking that Ice Lance. We mass invis, greater invis the Storm Bolt. That's going to reduce a lot of damage. Here, whenever we're getting gripped in, we're expecting to get stunned. Now we can set up a Snowdrift, Cone of Cold, keep them snared, keep them stacked up in that Snowdrift. Now I'm going to start dragging the melee DPS behind the pillar, away from the Mistweaver Monk, and if they chase me, they're going to die. If they don't chase me, well, they're not going to hit me, and they're probably going to die. So I can get a Ray of Frost here. No one's in range to interrupt me. They've used all their grips, and we get a huge burst of damage onto the Warrior. We get a fake onto an interrupt here. We're going to cast Polymorph Precog. Monk ports away from it. We're just going to displace back to our healer in Angel form. We don't want to overextend too much in this position. Drop down another Frozen Orb. Keep spamming out those Lances. Lance. Just keep spamming Lances. If we can get a counterspell on the healer, it'd be great. We get a Hammer of Justice onto the healer instead. We're still just going to hit whoever's in our line of sight, which happens to be the Death Knight, while the Warrior ends up toppling over to the Ret Paladin. And it was after this game when I looked at my details, and details showed me the ridiculousness and power of this build, which is the power of the Ice Lance. I think it ended up being over 50% of my damage here when I scrolled over. Yeah, 52%. 3.5 million damage in raw Lance power. Just what a tremendous build, man. Like this is exactly how the breakdown of your damage would have been if you're playing Frost Mage and Cataclysm. And I mean, Cataclysm Classic's coming around the corner, and it played exactly the same as it did, with some unique fun things that are in retail WoW, with like an infinite amount of blinks, and with the Snowdrift's AoE stun ended up being a lot of fun. So we're going to sneak in again with our Invis, get on top of the healer, try and look for a Dragon's Breath, Polymorph, or Ring of Frost. Against Death Knight, I like DBing and then blinking deep. This way you're completely out of range of a grip. That way you're going to guarantee that you get the Sheep. We're going to drop a Frozen Orb after we get the Sheep, keep babysitting the healer, keep dumping down these Ice Lances and Blizzards onto them as much as possible, trying to get the first CC that hits us because we're a mage, who cares. Drop a Ring of Fire down onto the melee DPS, so if they walk out of that, they're going to take an extra dot. See an anti-magic zone, so we're going to blink in and blast wave them out and go for a Ray of Frost as a really cheeky aggressive play. You could get punished for blinking like this, so you may want to focus on just staying max range and pressing Frostbolt if in these types of situations, because you could regret it. We lock the Priest on Shadow, go for a Poly. I know he can't Shadow Word Death it, locked on Shadow. We get another poly. Unfortunately, our monk here ends up kind of walking into Doomsday at the moment. We drop a Ring of Frost in desperation to try and save him, but there was not much that we could do between me and the warrior in that position with the monk in this round, and sometimes that happens. Sometimes it's going to happen. You just got to deal with it. You just got to move on to the next round. I would recommend at this point not to type anything, because there's like a 99% chance if you type something, you're going to cause that person to tilt and be against you for the rest of the lobby. So it would be my recommendation not to type anything in a position like this where somebody is kind of, they got a feed moment, something happened, they had a choke. I would recommend not typing anything. You don't want to tilt them any further, but we got to walk that off. We got to keep this lobby going. This lobby is for 2,400 ratings, so we got to keep our heads above water, not sink down into the argumentative state that a lot of people do in solo shuffle. So we're going to invis again, sneak up on top of the healer, look for that Dragon's Breath and a polymorph. And I think in this round I decided not to blink in, and I ended up regretting it. We're about to find out in a second. DB Sheep, oh, we get it because the warrior didn't leap over and stun right away. Forces the priest trinket. It's just a really safe way to guarantee that you get CC on the healer is to invis and sneak across. We alter time, blink away from the warrior. I just press alter like it's my first GCD whenever anyone looks at me, because it's really tough for anyone to push through it. Frozen Orb, a blizzard down onto as many people as possible. Snowdrift onto the warrior. He's overextended, channeling that ray, forces a trinket. We fake the kick on the trinket kick there, as we expected him to trinket the Snowdrift stun. So now Pummel's out of the way. We can get a polymorph for free, and we can start looking to start spamming some ice lances. You got to be a bit careful with this lance build. You can see I blinked into the priest and turned around, and that's because the lances will cleave and break your polymorph. So you got to be careful when the healer is sheeped close to the DPS. You want to be facing away from them so that the ice lances don't break the sheep. We're taking a bit of damage here, so we're going to ice block. Again, a little bit less trust from the last round with the Mistweaver, but again, around 30% health is probably the safe margin for using an ice block. Then we're just going to blink out into the corner of the map, pull them away from the priest, get Frost Novas out, try and get sheeps on the warriors overextended out of range of Dispel. And I see the priest casting Mind Control, so now I can cast some Frost Bolts. We're going to keep the warrior in polymorph. We get an incap on the healers. It's really good cross CC. We've isolated the Ret Paladin. We get an insane sleep here, Song of Chi-Ji. We get that Divine Shield Force from the red. We're just immediately going to start attacking the warrior. And this is another mistake I see a lot of players making solo shuffle, is when a target goes immune to damage or runs away from you, don't just do nothing, attack something else. But now they're out of range of interrupts and stuns. That's a great time to channel a Ray of Frost, get a bunch of pressure over onto the Ret Paladin. We blink in, priest backpedal fakes my counterspell. I feel like a noob. We have to wait for precognition. Now we get Storm Bolted, but my Death Knight gets a grip triple blind. Guess what? I can land a Ring of Frost off this and feel really stylish. We're chucking in Frost Bolts now that nobody can interrupt us. No one's next to us. Ring breaks early, so I go for another polymorph. We get a sleep, we get a poly. We broke through the shields. We're getting Lance procs. We blink in. We're going for a Snowdrift stun. Frost over the priest so he can't get out. He gets stunned up. Ret Paladin is isolated with no bubble, and Ice Lance feels so good. Feels so satisfying to go for the damage with this build. Absolutely a treat of a build, to say the least. I really enjoyed it. I like the the nuance of blinking in with Snowdrift and being aggressive, but also having the alternative options to play max range with Frostbolt. So it's a nice flex of play style. You're not going to be locked into one specifically. So if you're looking for something that's going to challenge you over the long term as far as a class or a build is concerned, I would really recommend Frost Mage. It's got a bunch of other options as well, because I'm the only mage that's really playing this build. Everybody else is playing Glacial Spike, but I found this to be really new player friendly because I'm doing the 2400 challenge to get to 2400 as many classes as possible. I got to consider what's going to get me to a higher skill cap faster than players who are just trying to focus down on one thing. But I think this could be a sleeper build. So now we're sneaking in Invis, Dragon's Breath, and this time I don't blink, and look, I get Death Gripped. This is why you should blink away from the Death Knight at the start of a game against a Death Knight and your opener Sheep, because now I'm not getting any CC, and it could put us behind potentially. We get a Stormbolt over on the Mistweaver. I've got Counterspell. I end up blinking in again and getting another Sheep, playing really aggressive this time around because seemingly they're going after the warrior. I don't know if this is streamer bennies or what this is, but for some reason I don't get attacked a lot, but now I'm next to them and they're like, okay, I guess we got to hit them. We drop another Frozen Orb, another Blizzard. Really good, important to keep these Blizzards and Frozen Orbs going as much as possible. We get a Counterspell onto the Monk, and this is allowing us to dunk the Death Knight. So with Mistweaver monks, you can't really play passive because their healing is so high. You need to be playing on top of them, keeping interrupts and keeping crowd control going on them, or they're going to be able to heal through anything that you really try and do. So in this position, in that map, in that situation, I played really aggressive, as you can see on top of the Monk. Counterspells, Dragon Breath, Sheeps, just anytime they're off the R, constantly trying to throw them into another CC because their healing output's going to be way too high otherwise for us to deal with it. You can see I'm playing Mass Barrier. I love pressing Mass Barrier before the gates open because it's such a long cooldown. You'll get it back in the middle of the game, and you'll get an absorb on everybody at the start, which is really good against something like a Death Knight who wants to grip everybody in. It gives you a little bit of a buffer of a shield at the start of the game because it lasts a minute. So you're around the 10-second mark, you can pop that Mass Barrier. We're going to Invis, sneak over towards the Priest, and again, Dragon's Breath, blink deep with Sheep would probably be the play. I don't remember remember if I ended up doing it in this specific round. The priest ends up running around the pillar. We get a DB behind the pillar, so we don't need to blink. We're out of line of sight of interrupts. We get a full sheep, flurry, ice lance, flurry, ice lance. Get those flurries on cooldown as soon as possible, because Icy Vein is going to give you another charge of those. So it's pretty much my first GCD, and just spam ice lance with orb and blizzard. Put the next blizzard and then alter back. Look at that, alter time, double blink away. They got to run through a gauntlet of blizzard and orb to get to me. I alter back and they got to run right back through it. So that's why I like setting that up in a gauntlet in a line for the melee DPS to run through. We get strangulated, silence, but life cocoon comes in, so I'm trusting the life cocoon absorb to be enough and not using ice block. But if I got any lower than that, I probably would have blocked. Frost Nova Snowdrift, get a stun onto the warrior. That forces the warrior's trinket. Snowdrift stun onto the Death Knight. He icebound fortitudes. We blink towards the priest who pushed in. You can get a polymorph here out of the Hammer of Justice. Ray of Frost, we get gripped. Again, Ray of Frost in this type of matchup is probably better to try and just pump fake and interrupt and get a precognition before you go for it, because there's just grip, stun, blind, fear. There's too much stuff that's going to interrupt Ray. So unless you're like absolutely max range from everything, it's probably better to fake for a precog. Would be my own personal criticism to myself and watching this VOD back. Probably should have altered timed at higher health here. I could have altered and then healed that back, got a blink and blinked away. Instead, it's going to cost me a block. So really pay attention to your alter time. It's your most powerful ability. You want to make sure that you're using that on cooldown. Go for a Snowdrift here. Try and stun up the Death Knight. Now he's playing smart. He's running out of the Snowdrift. This is why if you don't have a Cone of Cold or a Frost Nova to hold the melee, you got to be a bit careful about going for Snowdrift, because I end up not getting the stun on the Death Knight. We're going to drop a Frozen Orb, drop a Blizzard, blink towards the priest, drop the Blizzard there. We can displace back if we need to. We got a Blast Wave as well, which could knock them back. And honestly, I'm not even using Blast Wave as much as I really should be. It's a really effective spell on top of all the blinks. Ice Nova, root the warrior, pulling him behind the pillar. If he chases me, he's going to regret that. I got Ice Lances. He's not going behind the pillar with me. And he's got Guardian Spirit, but now they were out of range, so I can go for a Ray of Frost. So that it's, damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. If you chase me on the pillar, I'm going to spam Lance till you die, and if you don't chase me on the pillar, we're gonna get Ray of Frost, double ring on the anti-magic zone, blink towards the priest, try and go for a DB, knock them off of myself, miss the DB like a total scrub nub, but it's not a big deal. We got Ice Lance, so we're just gonna go back to spamming Flurry and Ice Lance, always Ice Lance twice after the Flurry to try and maximize the damage. Drop down a Ring of Fire when we run out of Flurry charges. It's gonna give us another dot, add to our damage overall. I see the priest, blink in, go for a sheep, doesn't get the death off, doesn't go for a fade. We get a precognition proc here. We get Icy Veins coming up, so we can start resetting those flurries. Flurry, Ice Lance, we get a full sleep. Blizzard Orb, he's got AMS, but dampening's getting high, and we are just cracking through with Flurry, Ice Lance, just trying to finish him off. He's using every cooldown he's got, so we're going to swap over to the Warrior, pop Icy Veins, keep dumping those Lances, Lance. Look how many Lances we're spamming at this point. Priest is desperately healing in Angel form at the moment, so we're waiting for that Angel form to end. Now, clutch play you can make with that Angel form against Holy Priest to put a Ring of Frost down on it, then as soon as it ends, they're going to get caught in a ring. I wasn't really in a position there to do it. We're just focusing on doing damage, staying max range, and potentially clutching out a CS, but we get max range, Ray of Frost, boom. As soon as we get max range and we're able to get that Ray of Frost off, we are absolutely cooking with this build. So now we got the final round. We got Death Knight Mage. Not necessarily the best comp in the game, but we really need this 5 win if we're gonna get our 2400 achievement done here on Frost Mage. So we gotta keep it going. We didn't let that one round choke get to us. We just got to keep playing out the next round and the next round, and don't let lobbies like the lobby before this. I think I went 2-4 or 0-6. Like I like sometimes you're gonna get a lobby where you do really badly, and depending on how good you are at dealing with your emotional state, you either need to stop queuing if you have no way to deal with it, or you just kind of push through, forget about it, didn't even happen. What were the lessons you learned from it, kind of deal. So we're sneaking in Invis. Want to go for that DB, want to go for that polymorph. So we're going to go for Dragon's Breath, go for a polymorph. We're out of range of the interrupts and the CC. My Death Knight grips him in the sheep, which is really unfortunate because this is going to break the sheep. But instead of panicking, I'm just going to go back to doing damage. Flurry Lance, try and get an orb, try and get a blizzard down as many people as possible. Swap off the life cocoon to the warrior. Always maximize your damage. Double Ice Nova root. We got a magic zone in the middle. Get a counter spell into the Mistweaver. Now swapping back to the red after that life cocoon's over. Cracking through Ray of Frost. You leaving me open? Are you kidding me right now? You leaving me open on this mage? Is this a joke? We get a full fear onto our priest, but I'm still pushing onto the monk. We trinket out of incap, go for DB and go for sheep. Your trinket is really kind of like liberal. You just use it almost whenever you want. Get a sheep on the trinket and bam, Ice Lance straight to the face. That's a 5-1. That's a 25 hundo, and we had fun doing it. So if you enjoyed this build, I'll have it linked in the description down below. And like I said at the start of the video, if you want to make sure you're staying up to date with news related to World of Warcraft, fun and exciting and entertaining builds to help you to decide what you should be playing in the game. If you're really struggling to pick what you want to play or what's going to help you succeed, then this is a great channel and resource for you. Other than that, thank you for watching the video, and I will see you in the next one.